Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us, 865-658-5824. Joined alongside Jacob the Beard in Wisconsin, here to talk some football as we get a little closer to kickoff here tomorrow night for Monday Night Football with the Saints. I know we got a full slate of games in the NFL today that are going to have playoff implications. We'll kind of walk through the playoff simulator, give you guys an idea of who to root for and who to root against, of course. We're also going to just kind of walk around social media, see what's going on around Packers, the Green Bay Packers world here, and we may have time to hit on some contracts as well. Before we get started, though, let's give a quick shout-out to the good folks over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since 92, specializing in Packers tickets. They are Wisconsin's largest ticket source with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Click on the link in the video description that'll send you to their website, theticketking.com. You can register as a customer there and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Again, that's Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. All right, Jacob, man. Tell me what's been going on, Bob. How you doing this morning? I know you. We just got you for a short bit here early on. You got to get out and be productive. How you doing, man?
Dude, I just woke up. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm approaching the age where if I sleep wrong, I'll be sore for like 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
I slept on my shoulder weird, and I can barely breathe right now. I don't know what's happening,
Yep.
but anyways, I'm alive.
That's it, man. You get those trap muscles once they start to tighten up. Every deep breath you take, man, you can't get comfortable. You're constantly looking for a spot to try to.
That's about how I feel. Yeah,
exactly. All right, let's see here. Let's take a walk through the chat real quick. I know we got Nick McSwain in the house. We got Ron Sample, Chris in, HR_money YT. I don't think I've ever seen you in here, man, or she. I don't know. Welcome to the show. Appreciate y'all. Dylan in the house. We got Blake B. We've got Josh Hooley. We got Cannonball John. Too old for this. It's funny. We went 30 minutes early, and everybody's here, man. They always seem to find their way in. We appreciate y'all for sure. Let's see here what Blake B had to say real quick. Wouldn't it be hilarious? I swear, no matter how much I try to adjust this, Jacob, you guys are always covered up by the comments.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's see if this helps. All right. Blake B says, wouldn't it be hilarious if LaFleur brought on Flus as a consultant next year? Those guys hung out at the Marquette basketball game together last spring. That would be funny. And listen, everybody laughs at Eberflus. Eberflus was a great defensive mind, man. He came from the Indianapolis Colts. They played predominantly zone defense. He was one of those guys that could really coach up a linebacking core. And he had that defense humming. Jacob, they were a top 10 defense pretty much the entire year that he was the coach here, right, this season. So I don't think he's a bad coach. It's just you kind of know where I stand on that. You guys have heard me say it 1,000 times. I'm not big on defensive-minded coaches being head coaches. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. It is funny, though. I mean, we talked about multiple times just how miserable it is to be a Bears fan. And this year it's the epitome of being a Chicago fan this year. And they keep Xing guys out, they keep firing people, they keep removing people, benching people, and it's the same situation. It's almost as if that the entire organization is rotted to the core. Just saying.
I'm telling you, man, culture is a real thing, and people roll their eyes and they laugh about it, but man, it's a real thing. And some players look at it. I've heard Pat McAfee say this, and there's probably some truth to it too, that if you're winning, you got a good culture. If you're losing, you got a bad culture. But I'm telling you, it's important to have men and women in your organization that genuinely care about what you're trying to accomplish. And on top of that, you got to have people at the top and specifically around football that are good football minds. And to me, that's where Chicago's dropped the ball. They went and got Ryan Poles, and Ryan Poles, I'm sure he's great at, what he's good at doing, but you need somebody at the top that can oversee the entire organization from a football perspective. You hear Coach Lombardi, Michael Lombardi talk about that all the time. You hear Coach Belichick talk about it all the time. It's, you've always got to have that guy at the top that knows what the heck's going on. And you think of the great Green Bay Packer teams in history. Ron Wolf was that guy, right? You had Bob Harlan was one of the nicest men you ever meet. And the things he did to revamp Lambeau Field, he'll go down as one of the all-time Packer greats, right, in terms of the front office executive, that type of branch. But when they bring in Ron Wolf, who had studied under so many great football minds, it was a football mind from the top bleeding down into the organization. And the same thing applied with Ted Thompson, who obviously was an understudy of Ron Wolf. Ryan Poles, great at what he does, I think, in a certain sense. And he's come from a great lineage too. And we won't go through that entire general manager tree, but you just got to have somebody at the top, man, pulling the strings that are like, hey, look, we've been there, we've done that. We know exactly what kind of culture you need to create. That's what Detroit's done, Jacob. Detroit's created a hell of a culture. Whether we love them or hate them, they've got a really good culture up there. So let's see here. Josh Hooley in the chat says, also go Irish. Yes, sir. Big win for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this weekend. It was a lot of fun. If you guys haven't seen the video, I was going to retweet it, but there was some language in it. If you go to Will Compton and just comb through in the last 12 hours, he put a tweet out of some of the Irish players getting hyped up on the field before the game. And first time I'd ever heard somebody say 4 quarters of FU football. And, boy, those boys were ready to roll, no doubt. We'll see how they do it the next round, though. It's about to get real in the college football playoff. Nick McSwain, think Tank Dell injury was gruesome. Hope he's okay. Man, did you see it, Jacob? You're muted, brother. Yeah. Oh, you're still muted. What's going on?
I got it. I'm a little squeamish when it comes to that stuff, but I heard it when I was at work and I had to look it up like an idiot. And it was rough. And honestly, I mean, thoughts and prayers obviously go out to him because he's already been through a really bad injury that could have been career ending. So I don't know. The one thing, he caught the ball and he made the touchdown, which, God forbid if that's his last catch in the NFL, at least he went out really, really awesome. Honestly, or hopefully we all hope that he's going to be okay. It was tough watching the way CJ Stroud reacted. I mean, he was clearly emotional. He wouldn't leave his side while he was getting loaded up into the ambulance or whatever they had there. It was not good, man. It was tough.
Yeah, it really was. And I'm the same way, man. I can stomach a lot of stuff. Growing up the way I did, it was kind of, I don't know, at an early age, you just see bad things. But boy, when I see something underneath the skin snap loose, I'm like, because I can't fix it, I can't get to it. That stuff scares me, right? It really does. It sucks, but that's part of the game. And you're right. Seeing CJ Stroud react was it just shows you why those guys try to play for CJ Stroud at the top level, why they probably overachieved the last 2 years as opposed to some teams who have underachieved, But yeah, definitely gruesome injury for sure. Blake B says, first round college playoffs were a complete bust this year. I wanted Ryan Day's head on a spike. Now I have to settle on my Wolverines handing him another L next year. Blake, I was with you on that, man. Now, listen, I'm in Tennessee, right? And it got really loud down here with the Vol fans. They were going to go up and they were going to take care of business. And Jake, a bunch of them made that trip to Columbus. There was Kirk Herbstreit said he had never seen that many away fans at the shoot. But sometimes when you run that mouth, man, you gotta, that bill's going to come due at the end of the month. You can go out and splurge, but when you want that electricity on, you better be willing to pay that bill. They were not prepared to pay that bill yesterday, and it sucked. I was rooting for the Vols for sure. Nothing really against Ohio State, just obviously being here in Tennessee when the Vols do good. Everything does good down here business-wise. So, all right. So that's pretty much everybody in the chat. Jacob, I know we've got you for a limited time. Is there anything you want to talk about before we dive into some of the topics I got, man? Anything at all that's at the forefront of your mind?
I mean, honestly, not exactly. It's kind of weird having back-to-back Sundays where we can watch other teams. I am kind of curious as I don't want to say that we're not a lock yet, right? We're like something like 97% to make the playoffs. If we win today, or I'm sorry, tomorrow, I think we would be a lock. I'm interested to see maybe, I don't know if you could, but what the playoff picture looks like, if that's possible, just to kind of see where, what games would be kind of dictated by today's performances.
So I'm going to give you guys a spoiler alert. I've already walked through the entire rest of the season kind of scenario. I don't see a scenario where we can win the North. I'm pretty sure that we're out of that. And maybe I'm overlooking something, but in terms of today, worst case scenario, and we'll walk through it here with the playoff simulator. If everything were to go against us today, and we lose tomorrow, we would fall to the 7th seed. Okay. So let's walk through it. We can go best case scenario and worst case scenario real quick. All right. Let's say that the Jets, let's go best case scenario first. The Jets beat the Rams. Let's say that Philly beats Washington. Let's say the Giants beat the Falcons. And some of you guys are going, there's no way this is going to happen. I'm with you. Let's talk best case scenario for say the Panthers beat the Cardinals. Let's say that the Bears somehow beat the Lions. Of course, they're banged up. Let's say the Seahawks beat the Vikings. And let's go Dolphins over the Niners, and we'll go Cowboys over the Bucks, and then, of course, us over the Saints. You'll see we still stay in the 6th seed. That's best case scenario. So there's no chance that we climb up in the 5th seed, obviously. So that's the best case scenario for this week. Now let's back it up, and let's go worst case scenario. So if we go we'll go Rams winning this game. We'll go Washington beating the Eagles. We will go Falcons beating the Giants. Let's go Cardinals beating the Panthers. We'll go Lions over the Bears. We'll go Vikings over the Seahawks. And we'll go San Fran over the Dolphins, Tampa over Dallas, and then, of course, the Saints over us. You'll see we actually fall to the 7th seed. So if everything goes wrong today, in addition to us losing tomorrow, we're still in the playoffs with the 7th seed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what was your specific question? Because what I can do is go to the next week while these are in place, if you want to take it a step further.
Well, I mean, that kind of just explained it. I was just wondering, again, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx us, but we could almost lose out and still make the playoffs, depending on the situation. Is that fair to say?
It's possible, I'm sure, but it would take everything going right for us outside of our games.
Right.
Because let's say, in this scenario here, everything went wrong, right? Let's go to week 17 real quick and just take it 1 week further and see if we're still in the playoffs here. And I imagine we probably would be until week 18. This just kind of shows you the buffer that we may have. Let's say that the Seahawks beat the Bears. Let's say who would we rather win there, the Cardinals or the Rams? The Rams are in the 4th seed right there currently. Let's say that the Rams win that game and they hope, they continue to improve off of the win we give them this last week here. Let's say the Buccaneers win. The Vikings beat us. Let's say that the Saints win. Not that it really matters. Giants doesn't really matter. Let's say that the Eagles win. And in this case, Washington and Atlanta. This is what kind of answers your question for you, really, Jacob. Like, you get to the point where these teams are going to beat each other up, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty much going to help us. But in this case, Washington is the 6th seed and Atlanta out of the playoffs. Let's say that Washington wins, okay? Actually, it says Washington already in. Let's go Atlanta there because they may be able to climb back up into the playoff race. And then let's say Detroit, okay? So if that happens in week 17, the Packers are still the 7th seed. So we cannot be eliminated from the playoffs until week 18. And it sounds like we'd have to lose out and even get a little bit of help. So yeah, to answer your question, we got a pretty damn good shot at making the playoffs, right? And I know people hearing my voice shaking, they're going, what are you guys talking about losing that? We're just worst case scenario, right? Kind of preparing ourselves in that regard. So now if you were to beat the Vikings there, right? If the only thing that goes different in week 17 after everything going wrong in week 16 and you beat the Vikings in week 17, guess what? You're the 6th seed. So you're good, right? Really just win one of these games, you feel really, really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we go. Some of the listeners here will help us out too. Aaron Rodgers in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He says, that's our Aaron Rodgers, not the Aaron Rodgers. We can clinch today. That scenario requires the Falcons to lose or tie, and also for either the Rams or Seahawks, both 8-6, to lose or tie. So there you go. There's your playoff implications today. A little bit simpler in terms of how Week 16 applies. I love looking at this stuff, though. And again, this Aaron Rodgers was the one who actually recommended this playoff simulator to us. It's been a great tool here down the stretch. Chris N says a 7 seed would be bad. In this case right here, if we were the 7 seed, yeah, we'd be going to Philly. I'm with you. That's a tough way to open up playoffs. But then again, how do you want to look at it? If you're playing arguably the best team other than the Detroit Lions and you somehow beat them, boy, the momentum you create, you got to face them. You got to face the best teams at some point, right? Whether it's a lower seeded team that upsets another one. To me, I've always looked at it like, if the Rams somehow get hot and they end up beating Philly at some point, and then we have to face the Rams are a better team than the Eagles. I look at it that way. And I know many people don't. I learned that when the Rams won the Super Bowl that year, Jacob. And everybody was, that wasn't even the best team in the league. The hell it ain't. They made it through the gauntlet. that's the best team in the league is how I look at it. But
Yeah.
anyway, anything else there?
I am actually excited. I'll have my earphones in today trying to listen, because that Lions Bears game at noon, definitely a lot of indications as far as what's going to happen in the North. And plus, it's always fun. Even like if there is a snowball's chance in hell that the Bears could pull up an upset, it's so fun to watch that, and the more likely scenarios that we get to watch the Bears get absolutely stomped into the ground, get more clips of Caleb Williams on the sidelines, just making it just a joke of himself. And then right away, then at 3:05, we got the Vikings Seahawks game, which is another implication much more for the playoff picture going forward. And I think somebody in the chat here brought it up too. It's like right here, Blake B saying, I'm curious to see how many more injuries the Lions can withstand, especially on defense. I added that. Going to be a bitter cold day at Soldier Field today. I mean, and you guys know we never pray for injury. We're not that kind of fan base. But at some point, the jig is up with Detroit, man. I mean, what do they have? Like 20 of their starters are on IR. I think their whole defense, other than maybe Brian Branch and another safety, who are both questionable now going into the game. Other than that, I mean, they have no starters anymore. And that is a testament, like you talked about, with the culture there. And with the biting kneecaps, man, everybody laughed at Dan Campbell, and look at what's happened. I mean, that you talk about a turnaround of a franchise from, I would argue, strictly culture. That's what he's done.
I think it's a great point. And I was one of those people that was like, man, that was cringy listening to that press conference. Then a couple of years later, you're going, damn, they bought in. You know, it is what it is. Nick McSwain says the Lions seem to always have issues with the Bears. You remember, Jacob, on Thanksgiving this year, right? The Bears, the Bears really lost that game. The Lions didn't win it. So it should be a dandy out there for sure. I'm excited about it. It is going to be cold. I looked it up, and it was going to be like around kickoff was, I think it was under 30 degrees. No snow in sight, but you know how it is this time of year too. That shadow casts a little bit early. It gets chilly in the shade. We'll see what those Detroit Lion third stringers are going to do today as they continue to battle injuries. Let's see here. Aaron in the chat says, Clayton, did you see that both Gibbs and St. Brown think Green Bay is the team you don't want to play? I did not see that.
Yeah, they did an interview. And Gibbs, man, you could see he didn't want to say it. He was like, Green Bay, he's like, they're good. They're good. And I think about it too. Like, we talk about a game we probably should have won, barring a few, missed calls here and there, missed opportunities. The Lions know, because we played them harder than any other team. I think up to that point, or until that point, we were the only team that's put up 30 on them. And I just last year was kind of the same situation. I remember the Lions have a lot of respect for us, specifically Amon-Ra St. Brown, and now with Gibbs. I think that should tell you something. Yeah,
definitely. Aaron said he just sent the clip from St. Brown podcast. I could probably pull it up, Aaron. I just got to make sure that the screen's covered, because they'll hit us with the AI is what detects this stuff. We give credit for everything we share on here. Sometimes the artificial intelligence on YouTube will actually grab a hold of something, and then there's no one to reach out to on YouTube. So let me see if I can get it pulled up here real quick. And if you want to hit something in the chat, Jacob, I'll grab it.
Yeah, Nick McSwain brought up a really great point when we were talking about the Lions IR squad. He says the Packers have the record for winning a Super Bowl with people on IR. They had 16 people on IR in 2010 when we won the Super Bowl. So it can be done, but it is, I remember that year, wasn't that the resurgence where we had guys step up that we didn't see a lot of? I remember, was it Desmond Bishop and guys like Starks and a lot of guys that kind of had to fit. I love when you just pop that in there for no reason.
That'll work out. Take one. There we go.
What's up, Murph? How you doing, Murph?
All right, let's hit it. We've got that sound bot. It's just about 16 seconds long. Thank you, Aaron, for sending it over. This was on the St. Brown's podcast there. And obviously a couple guys that we don't care a whole lot about as Packer fans, but you got to respect the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the best slot receivers in the game. There's no two ways about it. Here's what he had to say about the Packers.
Who's the one sleeper team you think in the playoffs and NFC? Like sleeper? Like you don't want to play them. Rams, Packers. On me, like I don't know the Rams, bro. Rams and Packers, you do not want to play those guys, bro. You do not want to play those guys.
All right, so I love that too, because if someone were to ask me, what's the team you don't want to play, Jacob? It's the Rams. Like they've got a coaching staff that knows how to win a Super Bowl, right? They've got a quarterback who knows how to win a Super Bowl, and he can spin that thing. And you talk about taking care of his body, man. That dude has stayed in great football shape. And Matt Stafford. And when we played the Rams earlier this year, guys, it wasn't a pushover, and they were missing Puka Nacua. So I completely agree with that. If I had to pick one team that you don't want to face, and I know people are like, oh, you mean you'd rather face the Eagles over the Rams? I think that's a tough conversation to have. But sometimes when you're one of the best teams in the league, we've seen it as, making it to the NFC Championship and then just kind of falling off the ledge there. You kind of run out of gas at the end. Those teams that catch a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs, it's exactly how we won in 2010, right? So there you go, Brambo. Yeah, Rams have their weapons back on offense. And again, man, Sean McVay has got those guys bought in. I love McVay as a coach. I know there's some people that don't like him, but I think he's a hell of a coach for sure. Thank you, Aaron, for sending that over. Go ahead, Jake.
Ron says LaFleur doesn't lose to McVay. It's an unwritten NFL rule. He does have his number pretty much. I like that.
He does, yeah, and that's definitely probably Matt's best friend in football, to be honest with you. People always draw a parallel with Kyle Shanahan. You can tell that Matt and Kyle don't get along great. There's something there between those two guys, and I think it goes back to the Aaron Rodgers deal because they had sparked that whole problem with Aaron that year. People make it sound like the Packers were shopping him around. They were not. The 49ers called and asked if Aaron was available, and then someone in the 49ers organization leaked the information out that they talked to the Packers about trading Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was like, whoa, y'all are trading me? And you know how insecure Aaron is, right? I can comfortably say I'm an insecure person. You guys watch his show, you can tell I'm very insecure, so this isn't a knock on 12. It's just that was them trying to force Aaron out of there, them meaning the 49ers, because they were so concerned about him. And it ended up the next time the Packers faced the 49ers in a regular season, I don't know if you guys remember that handshake, but it was ice cold between LaFleur and Shanahan. So I kind of feel like there's something there. But when it comes to McVay, man, there's just nothing but love and respect between Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur for sure. So, but you're right, man. I
wonder
Matt's definitely had his number.
If there is a little bit of that, combativeness between those two or competition, whatever it is. I wonder if Kyle, once he heard that Salah was coming over, I wonder if he was like, you son of a
And see, that's the thing too. Like Salah got his big break with Kyle, right? With the 49ers being the DC, and that's what propelled him into being a head coach. But people didn't know behind the scenes, not everyone knew behind the scenes, that Matt LaFleur and Salah are best friends. Like they were best friends.
They were at each other's weddings, weren't they?
Yeah, the best man in each other's weddings. I think they were college roommates. I love hearing, there were some old audio clips of them talking about being in college and playing Madden against each other and how competitive they would get in the dorm room and stuff. So it's really cool, man. Yeah.
Now that you just said that, we talked about culture and we think about how it's only within the players. You want to keep the players happy, keep them in good vibes. But think about our coaching staff. They're all old buddies. They're like best friends, like on the field. I mean, I can't imagine that there's probably not a better culture on all the way up the hierarchy of this. You know what I mean? From the front office to the coaching staff to the players to the equipment people. You've seen how much the players, every time they retire, they call out guys that we never see, people that work in the equipment room, the cafeteria, all that kind of stuff. It seems like the Packers, once again, they just have built it from the ground up. It's just all culture.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. And I know some people get upset when they hear that, like, hey, he's just hiring his buddies. Who would you rather work with? The people that you care about? You're going to work harder for the people that you care about, or just some random Joe like, this is just a stepping stone, my next, the next point in my career type thing. All right. Like it's, J. Cole in the chat says, Kyle doesn't like Matt LaFleur. I think there's a little bit of jealousy there, to be honest with you. Yeah, let's see here. 2-0 for this. McVay always looks like a possum that just saw the best dumpster in Alabama. There you go. There's some good dumpsters in Alabama. I guarantee you that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see here. Chase Green has a question real quick. Listen, you're going to waste a lot of people's time here asking questions like this. How do you beat cover 2, Clayton? Expecting the Saints to run that and rush 4 a lot on Monday. So anytime a question pops up, Jacob, about X's and O's, we got to do it. We got to do it. I'm a geek for this stuff. I remember the first person that asked me a X's and O's question. Like, I don't remember the person individually, but I remember the first time it was asked, I was like, oh, they done opened the floodgates. Let's go. This is what I absolutely love. So let's draw it up here real quick. So he's talking about beating a cover 2, and this is just a still shot. We won't roll any video. What he's talking about in cover 2, we'll try to be as quick as we can here. And Jacob, you chime in at any point. Cover 2, this safety is going to cover deep half. This safety is going to have deep half deep down here, okay? Typically what will happen is curl to flat, right? You'll have hook curl, and then curl to flat. Okay, that's typically the way that the cover 2 is designed. All right, now how do you attack it? you've got what I call bunkers and the base. All right, so you can attack over top the corner, under the safety on the outside on both sides, or you can attack the base, which is just basically down the seam. Okay, so when you're talking about running the cover two, now here's the tricky part. What teams are doing a lot is they're mixing in a little match, and it's like in the old days, a Tampa 2 was just a set where, hey, this is the call. The Mike's going to cover the deep seam. Well, today they're actually matching the 2 to 3, depending on if it's trips or a dub set. In this case, we're in a trip set technically, or a tray set, meaning 1, 2, 3 on this side, one of those being the tight end. So what would happen if it was Tampa 2 is this guy would lock in on the 2 and the 3, and if either of those guys go vert, he's going to cover the seam. So he takes that away, right? But if you're running the traditional cover 2, again, the weak spot is going to be right here in the middle of the field, the seam, and then over here. So now what you do is you work backwards. How do you attack that space? Because that's all football is defending space and attacking space. That's all it is. So in this case, what you want to do is try to walk. You want to try to attack the middle of the field, okay? So what you'll probably have is, say, your 3, which is a tight end, travel down the seam, okay? You want something to hold this corner underneath and then maybe attack over top of him. That makes sense? So a little concept like that, and in that specific case, some people might call that like a dog concept, or let's see if we've got the 1 on a quick out and the 2 on a deeper out. Let's see if we got anything on the chart here. I got my cheat sheet right in front of me. Some people would call that outs or levels. Levels are typically breaking in, though. I would call it, you could call it like a flat 7. You could call it anything like that where you work a corner. People try to mix in diagonal 9s too, or a wolf concept. A wolf concept is instead of this guy being an out, it would be a corner route. So now when you attack that way, right, your read is going to be, as the quarterback, is going to be read the tight end down the seam, okay? So ball snapped. If this backer flips his hips, you know it's Tampa 2. Now you've got to work underneath, right? And the way that you can combat Tampa 2, let's say that this defender does walk out. Let's say he walks out down the seam to cover that, right? Well, guess what's open? Right here in the middle of the field underneath. And that's where you mix in a little dig route underneath. So the read becomes, it's somewhat of a high-low read, but you're looking at the 3 on the seam, okay? You've got, you know where you're going to have your option, which is a high-low read on the right, down here at the bottom, down here, okay? So if you look up and you go, okay, we're just going to work the high-low, then you got to be real quick with the trigger. Are we going over top of the corner under the safety to the out, or are we just going underneath the curl flat with the corner for the quick out, that type of thing? So to answer your question, and again, that's why I try not to talk about this stuff too much while we're live on the air, but what you want to do is attack the seam, attack what they call the hole shot or the bunkers, and you got to read, is it Tampa 2 or not? Now, they'll go invert too. We've run a lot of invert this year, Jacob. And what that means is, rather than these guys covering deep half, what they'll do is they'll buzz down here and cover curl flat and maybe a hook curl and allow this defender to go curl flat. And then with an invert 2, what typically happens is your corners cover deep half. So you got to be able to read that too. So, and the same as Tampa 2, where that Mike backer will read the 2 to 3, the 3 to the 2 and cover the seam. What will typically happen is this guy right here will actually make that same read but maintain his position. And you won't even know that they were in an invert 2 until the very end. So that makes sense.
Yeah, Ron has a quick question that goes with this. He says, does the receiver have an option route depending on if the linebacker drops back into that Tampa 2?
Absolutely. Not on every play, Ron, but choice, we call them choice routes, option routes, right? That's very, very, very prevalent within Matt LaFleur's offense. Meaning, like with the tight end, that could definitely happen. Let's say his choice route is, it's going to be either a seam route, or if this backer flips his hips and goes with him, then you break it down and just run a little curl. See what I'm saying? That could be the case too. And out here on the outside, it could be if they're playing a hard, what we call a hard flat. If this corner isn't going to sink, sometimes you got cover 2 sink and you got cover 2 hard flat. If they sink, then they're willing to go like 10 yards, right? But if you notice as they get out into their break that this corner right here is actually just kind of playing shallow, playing that hard flat. If that's the case, then as this receiver right here, what you may do is go, okay, I know he gave up. Let's just run a quick curl, sit down in space. Because that's one of the easiest ways to beat zone defense is just find the space and sit. And the reason I know that I feel very comfortable saying that Matt LaFleur's offense is littered with choice routes is because you remember Aaron's last year where it was always, Jacob, the conversation was, why didn't Aaron throw to the open guy? And the Hall of Famers were going, hey, Bub, he wasn't supposed to be there. He read that wrong. The young receivers were reading the choice route keys wrong is what was happening. So, again, that's not my opinion. That's first ballot Hall of Famer Kurt Warner's opinion, right? It's not even Kurt Benkurt's opinion. People go, oh, Kurt Benkert sucked in the NFL. Well, he made it further than me, so I'm always going to defer to his opinion there. So, anything else you want to hit there, man?
No, that's good for me. I actually have to hop off, so hopefully we have some happy football watching, guys. I will surely jump on tomorrow, and we'll talk some ball, hopefully do some pregame stuff, and go Pack Go.
All right, buddy. We appreciate you jumping on, man. Have a good day.
Later.
All right, that was Jacob the Beard. Glad to have him back, and we're going to start working him back in like we talked about with his schedule when it makes sense. So let's see here, Blake B. Then we lost Driver and Woodson during the actual Super Bowl. That's a great point, Blake, taking it back to that Super Bowl run, losing key players, man. Just because a team, has injuries pile up, it doesn't mean that they can't get hot at the right time, right? It doesn't mean that they can't continue on that momentum. I remember halfway through that season in 2010, that's how I felt. Was like, if I remember correctly, Ryan Grant went down, Jermichael Finley, Jermichael Finley went down, and there was someone else that got hurt fairly early too. And I'm like, well, this is just ain't going to happen this year, right? And then the next thing you know, you get in the playoffs, you get that huge win in Philly. Obviously, that momentum built even stronger into Atlanta with the way Aaron Rodgers played. Tramon Williams' pick six that sealed, basically won you the turnover differential and the middle eight on that pick six in Atlanta. And then it was just momentum from there on out. Chicago, same thing. You had to have a couple things go right for you in Chicago. Obviously, their quarterback, if I remember correctly, Jay Cutler gets hurt in the second half, and he has to go out, and they ended up having what was his name? Was it Henne? What was his name? I can't remember the quarterback's name, but that was another thing that played a big role in that NFC Championship for sure. Nick McSwain, that was when players on IR were out for the entire year, couldn't be active if you were put on IR. That's a great point, too, how the rules have changed. There, Nick. I love the new rule change. I think it's silly to say, nope, he's hurt. He's got to be done for the year. Like, you should be able to put your best players out there. I think the rules should be a little more flexible in that regard. That's just me. Like, even the 4-week IR, I kind of think it's silly too. It's like, if a player's active, if a player's inactive, then they shouldn't count towards your roster. And I know this is a very simplistic way of looking at the league. And the reason the rules are in place is to kind of build that drama and build that strategic aspect of the game. And it's, let's be honest, it's a talking point rather than I wonder if he'll play or not. It's all right. You got to lower this guy. You got to throw this guy on a 4-week IR. You got to activate somebody off the practice squad or go sign with someone to your active roster. A lot of things like that kind of come into play too. That's just more talking points for the league. I can kind of see why they keep the rules the way they do. Brambo in the chat, or you can just run them out of it to Jacobs could feast. It depends on how good their front four is. Now, when you're talking specifically about the Saints, yeah, their run defense is garbage. Now, doesn't mean they can't load the box to stop it, right? But I'm not a big fan. I kind of disagree with you there, Brambo. Cover 2 man, you run them out of it. But when it comes to a cover 2 zone, it's a hard defense to run against because everybody's eyes are on the ball at all times. There's no the only person that really's got to find their work, like keep their eyes on their work, is the mock. If they're really, really aware of, hey, are they going to attack the seam here? Outside of that, everybody's eyes are on the ball. And you've also, this is why Tampa Bay in the late 90s, early 2000s, their defense was so damn good, was they would play Tampa 2, right, with Tony Dungy down there. And when you play hard flat with the corners on the outside, what that allows them to do is play inside out. They can play the inside shoulder of the receiver, knowing that their responsibility is outside shoulder and covering the curl flat, right? So them playing just the inside half of their receiver at the cornerback position and knowing I've only got to fall back 5 to 7 yards. they can be very aggressive with their eyes in the backfield attacking the run. And that's what who was it? Was it Rondé Barber? Yeah, Rondé Barber was great at that in Tampa Bay. And here's the thing, too. Their front four could handle the run, right? It was Simeon Rice. It was Warren Sapp. You had two of the best. That's a perfect example right there of us talking about you need two dogs on that defensive line. And Simeon could play defensive end. I think he played defensive end predominantly, if I remember correctly. And, of course, Sapp would play anything from a 1 to a 3 tech and just dominate double teams and everything. You got those two guys in the middle. You got Brooks, who was your mock, who's a Hall of Famer, if I remember correctly, right? He's the one playing Tampa. Now, people listed him as a will backer, and this whole interchangeable thing has been going on for a while between the will and the mock, right? People would look at him and go, man, he was the dominant mock defender in a Tampa 2 defense, right? People talk about that all the time. Brooks down in Tampa, one of the fastest linebackers ever play the game. But if you really look at tape, most of the time he was playing will and covering Tampa, right? That's what I mean by it depends on how you want your backers to meet the run fit and which backer specifically, not the position, which backer do you want to be more involved with the run fit will determine who's going to be playing Tampa down the seam. So let's see here. Aaron Rodgers with some football news, also non-football news. Rest in peace, Ricky Henderson. Yeah, I seen everybody tweeting about Ricky, and I had no idea what was going on. But evidently Ricky Henderson passed away. What a colorful character. He was just dominant base stealer. He's one of the guys that got me really interested in stealing bases. That was one of the few things I was good at playing baseball was I had a really, really good reaction time to where I could get a huge lead and never get picked off and get a great first step. It's not that I had blazing speed, but he was one of the players that shaped me. Like watching him play football, I was like, man, there's not much more exciting in baseball than to see a player lead off of a bag and the pitcher know we can't stop him from stealing that base from us, right? And when you kind of gain an edge of that, no matter what level you're playing baseball, it's a lot of fun. So, yeah, rest in peace, Ricky Henderson. Again, he said some stuff that make you go, what did he say? I understand that. But, yeah, my favorite Ricky Henderson story, to give you an example of one of those. This isn't the dogging because he laughed about it later on in life. There was a guy named John Olerud. You guys may remember him. He played defense with a helmet on because he had a medical condition. And real quick story. I know this isn't a baseball podcast. This is hilarious, though. He ended up, I think they ended up it was either the Blue Jays together or the Yankees together. It doesn't really matter. But they ended up on a team together, and Ricky noticed he was wearing a helmet. And he was like, hey, man, I played with another guy back in wherever it was, New York or wherever it was. I played with another guy that wore a helmet in the field too. And John Olerud looked at him and said, Ricky, that was me. We were teammates back then. So Ricky had no clue he had already played with John Olerud, which is just absolutely hilarious. I'm pretty sure it was John Olerud that wore the helmet. But, yeah, rest in peace, Ricky Henderson, one of the greats for sure. Cheesehead Murph in the house. Good to see you, buddy. He says, anyone else notice that we like coaches with M names? Mike Holmgren, Mike Sherman, Mike McCarthy, Matt LaFleur. Matt messed up the Mike trend. I guess we dropped the Mike. I see what you did there, man. I see what you did there. I didn't really notice that, but, yeah, that's pretty wild. Like, have we had outside of Ray Rhodes, right? Ray Rhodes, I think it was his name. Yeah, outside of him, everybody their first name's been an M. I have never noticed that. See, Jacob's off here. We should have queued up the conspiracy music for sure. All right. There we go. That's kind of got us caught up in the chat. I believe we're good there. What we're going to do now, let's take a walk around Twitter. We got a few minutes left here. And Tim's on the road today. Everything's good there. Emilio's asleep in his race car bed, so everybody's where they need to be today. Let's go around Twitter here. We talked about the comment that Rich Massacha made about calling his nickname for Edgerrin Cooper was Frosty. We finally got an answer to that. Matt Schneidman tweeted out yesterday, Rich Massacha told us Edgerrin Cooper's nickname is Frosty, but wouldn't reveal why. Here is the reason. We'll let Edgerrin Cooper explain it again. This is a shout out to Matt Schneidman for tweeting this video out from the locker room.
So can you explain the nickname that Rich told us about yesterday?
So it's named my horse. So my horse I got at the house, it's Frosty. So ever since he found out about that, that's all. Since I got here, he's been naming me Frosty. So that's it.
A horse here in Green Bay or back home?
No, Green Bay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the horse named Frosty when you got it? Or did you name it?
No, that was the name when I first got him. Yes.
How long you been a horse guy?
Oh, well, my friends, growing up had them for a while. So that's all I've been usually around. And, you know, God bless to be in this position, so I was able to, you know, get my own. So.
Okay. Do you have a clause in your contract that says you can't ride the horse during the season?
I mean, they're just pets right now. Just
okay.
Pets. They're all looking good in the front yard. So.
How many horses do you have?
Up to. Yeah.
Frosty and who?
Cinco.
As in like the number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I spell it right.
Yeah,
I don't want to offend the horse.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
And Matt Schneidman's tweet, he said, turns out Cooper bought a horse named Frosty when he moved to Green Bay. He has another named Cinco here. Quote, they just pets right now, all looking good in the front yard. So I know this isn't the case, but I just imagine that Edgerrin Cooper, you know, rookie, live in a big fancy subdivision and there's a horse out in the middle of a quarter-acre yard. You know what I mean? That's the way I kind of seen it, but I'm sure that's not the actual case. Probably got a lot of property out there. But I wanted to show that video because I love Edgerrin Cooper, man. He's got kind of that childlike faith. You could tell that he's a humble dude. Obviously, being a country boy, you guys seen him. I can't remember what week it was. He showed up to the game and he wearing the cowboy hat and the Wrangler jeans and everything. Right? Shout out Brett Favre. But I don't know, man. He just seemed like he's going to fit on this team really, really well. And you could tell that's probably one of those dudes that during the interviewing process, they probably fell in love with him. Like, this dude is going to fit right in to a small town Green Bay, you know? And that stuff matters. Again, this is all part of that culture that we talk about, right? So let's see here. Chris in the chat. I'm heading to the airport shortly, headed to Green Bay, baby. Hey, safe travels, man. Enjoy the game if that's what you're going for. I'm sure it is. As Randy Moss said one time, there ain't a damn thing to do in Green Bay. No, it was Terrell Owens that said that. I disagree, though, man. It's an awesome place. So safe travels up there, Chris, for sure. Let's keep it moving here. All right, here's a little bit of information. I mean, it's like not breaking news or anything, but we kind of talked about this. Matt Schneidman had quote tweeted at MBW_87, who said, who is likely to get most of Quay's snaps? Matt Schneidman said Eric Wilson will wear the green dot. So if you guys don't know what the green dot is, I'm sure everybody here in the chat does. If you don't, it's okay. It just means the helmet of a specific player on defense. We get one player on defense that will have a green dot on the back of their helmet, and that means they've got the radio in their helmet. Okay, so they're communicating with the sideline, or the sideline's communicating with them rather than getting the calls in. That cuts out once you hit, I think, the 15-second mark on the play clock. And he's kind of the guy that's burdened, or however you want to look at it, blessed with the responsibility of taking the call from the coaching staff, relaying the message to the defensive huddle, right? It doesn't mean that they're calling out changes, although most green dots do. Sometimes you'll see Xavier McKinney calling out changes at the line and changing the play a little bit, right? But Quay has done it as well. It just simply means that that's the player, and the reason Matt Schneidman answered this question this way, who is likely to get most of Quay's snaps. The person with the green dot is always going to get the majority of the snap. The goal is to have that linebacker on the field every single defensive snap, okay? Because he's going to be relaying that information. Now, if he were to get hurt, I'm sure there's a backup plan for another player to have a green dot in a helmet. That could be Xavier McKinney with a backup helmet. I don't know. It could be another linebacker. It might end up being Cooper, who's got a backup. They're always going to have a green dot and a backup green dot, probably a backup to the backup green dot, you know, like assistant to the regional manager type thing, if you guys watch The Office. So, yeah, that's what you're going to see there. Now, there's a multitude of reasons why they may have Eric Wilson wearing the green dot. It's not necessarily, hey, he's our best linebacker, let's put him out there. But it might be that he understands the defense the most. It might be that his teammates respect him the most. And some of you guys may think that's silly. I think it's a real thing. I mean, think about it. We've all worked jobs, right? How many people have worked a job where you go into work that day and a supervisor that you have no respect for, they haven't done a damn thing for the team. Nobody on your work environment team, right, have any respect for them at all, and they're the ones who are telling you what to do, right? It sounds silly, but I think that's a real aspect to it too. And everyone lights up when they talk about Eric Wilson. He's a dude who's earned his stripes on special teams. We've seen him absolutely ball out this year, so he has a certain level of credibility, current credibility. I think that's probably why they chose him too. And you guys know how I feel about Eric Wilson. I personally think Eric Wilson, if you were to say, Clayton, you go out there and you set the lineup for the defense today, who are your two inside linebackers on nickel? I've been very vocal about this. It would be Edgerrin Cooper and it'd be Eric Wilson. That's my choice. and then have Quay come in on the base defensive snaps, and then after that would be McDuffie. I just think Eric Wilson has shown enough that he can be that dude. Now, where are his deficiencies? It could potentially be covering the seam, and that's where Quay excels. But what are you gaining from starting Eric Wilson over Quay? Is you got a guy who's not going to hesitate at making the decision to shoot his shot. That's where Quay, that's the only place where Quay has really come up short. The problem is he's come up short, really short, in that aspect of his game. It just seems like it's should I go? Should I jump? Okay, now let's go, and it's too late. And you see Edgerrin Cooper, there's no hesitation. With Eric Wilson, there's no hesitation. But again, you got pros and cons to each aspect. And I think one of the reasons why they've decided to go with Quay the entire year, and they'll probably continue to do it until they decide if they want to extend him after next season, or maybe pick up the fifth-year option this offseason, is they wanted to run a lot of Tampa 2. That's not a theory. We know that now. It's all over the tape this year that we've run a ton of Tampa 2. And Quay, that's his strength. Who knows, that might have been why Coach Hafley leaned in and pressed into to Tampa 2, is because he said, hey, this is what Quay does really well. And great coaches put players in position to do what they do really well. That makes sense. So, that's hopefully that answers any questions there may be there. I'm trying to comb through the chat. Like I said, it's hard when you're flying solo to keep up with this. All right, I think we're good. Let's go on up here. This is interesting. I thought we just hit on it real quick. We already kind of talked about what's going on in the playoff hunt, but Fox Sports NFL put this out. This is it says, who will be kings of the NFC North? Here are the remaining schedule for both the Lions and the Vikings. The Lions at the Bears, obviously today. Then it's at the 49ers, and they got the Vikings at home. Listen, there's a chance a banged-up Lions team could lose all three of those games. I think that you'd be silly to think that the Bears would be favorites, right? 49ers have been banged up too. The Vikings is probably the toughest team they're going to play here, but I think there's a chance that the Lions could drop two of those three, I know some people believe they could lose out. Some people think they could win out. Obviously, all that's on the table. But if I had to guess and I had to bet the farm, how many of those games do you think the Lions are going to win there down the stretch? I would say they'll probably win two of the three. That's just me personally, based off the remaining schedule. But a close second would be losing two of the three. But I don't think they'll win all three. I don't think they'll lose all three, if that makes sense. So Vikings at the Seahawks, Packers at home, and then at the Lions. It's obvious that the Vikings have the much tougher schedule. And this is why you kind of look at this and go, it's a pretty damn good shot at us getting that 5 seed. There really is. The Vikings could slip up here. And they could lose to Seattle. I know after the Seattle team we just played, you'd think it's highly unlikely they'll lose to them. But let's say they beat Seattle and we split with them and we beat them at in Minneapolis in week 17. And then they lose to the Lions. If they lose two of the next three and we win out somehow, right, then I think that would make us the 5 seed, if I remember correctly. Matter of fact, I ain't going to put it on the screen, but I can. I've got this. No, I've got that shared. Let's clear the whole criteria for that. And let's say that the Vikings, let's just focus on the Vikings and the Packers here. Matter of fact, it would make sense to put it up there. Let's see what it would take for us to get the 5 seed from the Vikings real quick. Let's see if we can figure out exactly what that may look like. If we slide it over, hopefully y'all can see it. All right, so let's just focus on the Vikings and the Packers. Let's say the Vikings lose to the Seattle Seahawks. At what point will the Vikings losing and the Packers winning put us in the 5 seed? That's what we're trying to determine. Okay, so they can lose to the Seahawks today, and we could beat the Saints, and they're still the 5 seed. All right, if we go to week 17 and we beat the Vikings, okay, at that point, we're still the 6 seed. And then if you go to week 18 and let's say we beat Chicago, that puts us in the 5 seed without the Vikings game yet. Let's say the Vikings beat the Lions, they're going to maintain that 5th seed. So what it's going to take, if I'm looking at this correctly, is the Vikings would have to lose all 3 games and the Packers would have to win all 3 games for us to climb up into the 5 seed. All right. So that's how that currently sits. If the playoff simulator is correct, just walking back through it. Actually, that was the Vikings. Today we had the Seahawks. Yeah. So in order for us to jump the Vikings and take the 5 seed, it would take the Vikings losing out and us winning out, which could happen, right? It could happen. So Prince says also a possibility the Lions fall into the 5 position, which may make it harder for us to take the 5. That's a great point. So I think what you're saying, Prince, is what if Minnesota ends up still in the North, right? If that's the case, let's clear it off here. And let's say that Minnesota wins outright. Bang. Right? And then we'll go. That was week 18. Let's say Minnesota wins. Let me clear it all off here real quick just to make sure it's clear. So let's say the Vikings win outright, right? They win week 16. They win against us in week 17, and then they win against the Lions in week 18. That makes the Vikings the number 1 seed in the NFC. Okay. Now, let's say that, let's keep that up, and let's say the Lions beat the Bears today. All right. And let's say next week the Lions beat the 49ers. All right. They still got the Vikings in the 1 seed. Right. And then, them beating Detroit. There you go. So, if the Vikings win out, guys, they're the number 1 seed, and they're the winners of the NFC North. Right. So that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Hollister in the chat, can we get the first in the North? I don't think so, Hollister. You guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I've kind of walked through this a couple times, and I could be missing something, but I don't see any scenario where we win the North. Like let's say the Bears beat the Lions and the Seahawks beat the Vikings, and we win our game, right? So let's essentially say that the Vikings and the Lions are going to lose out. All right. That case right there, that's in place. Bang. And then we beat the Bears. And let's see, in this case, it would be between the Vikings and the Lions here. The Lions. So let's say the Vikings are the 6th seed, they win. Yeah, there's no way that we can win the North. It's just not. It's not possible. So we're definitely out of contention there. And I think that's like Hollister says. What if the Lions lose all 3? Packers win out and the Vikings beat the Lions. Then it means So what you're saying is the Vikings would have to, if the Vikings drop some games. I just don't see it, man. And again, we're not even taking into account Philadelphia. I don't see a scenario where the Packers could win the North. But you guys, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat for sure. I just don't. I'm not seeing it if that's the case. So again, just wanted to kind of hit on that remaining schedule for the Packers and the Vikings as we get ready here for some more football today. Let's see if we got anything else we want to hit on. This was Brian Baldinger talking about the Packers against the Seahawks. I haven't had a chance to share this with you guys yet. Maybe you guys have heard it already. I don't know, but this is a pretty cool little video. Let's check out what former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger, one of the best at breaking down the tape, had to say about the Seahawks. You'll see some of these plays that we showed on Chalk Talk. This one specifically, the double A-gap mug, the double barrel mug, whatever you want to call it. Here's what Baldy had to say about the Packers against the Seahawks.
Seattle really struggled on 3rd downs against Green Bay. Like here, you got 6 guys up. It's only 3rd and 4 here. 7-0 game in the first quarter. And they run this little pick right here, pick stunt. And here comes Edgerrin Cooper free. All right. And he takes Geno down for a sack. You got a punt. All right. Now it's 14-0. And it's 3rd and 2. And here you go. Like here's Carl Brooks. All right. He's winning. And Rashawn Gary's winning. And they collapse right there on Geno Smith. And then the worst was right before the end of the half. Like there's Green Bay blitzing. And they're playing man coverage. And right there is Carrington Valentine. Man coverage. They're going to Noah Fant on this 7 cut. And watch Carrington see the ball there and then turn around and go play the ball. It's a great play by Valentine. Great play. From the end zone, you can see the reaction here. Geno thinks he's got the 7 cut to his tight end. Now, he's getting hit as he throws it, so he probably doesn't put it like enough velocity on it, and Carrington comes up with it. It's a great play. Packers been intercepting quarterbacks all year. But that one takes points off the board. Right, 17-3, trying to make it 17-10 before the half. Instead, they don't get any points at all because of the interception. Great job by Green Bay's defense.
And specifically, great job by Carrington Valentine, 7th-round pick, second-year player. And he didn't even really go into a lot of depth like we did about how it was man coverage, and he plays that fisheye, sees the quarterback through his work, turns and makes a play on the ball, and a guy he's not even covering. A great play, and I love that he mentioned it was right before halftime because again, it sealed the it sealed the middle eight and the turnover differential. Essentially, that one play won you the middle eight and the turnover differential. And you look at the score and you think, Clayton, they beat them pretty handily. I got you. If you had to say what's the most important play from that game, that's the one for me. And I love chalk talk because we could typically narrow it down to 10 to 15 most of the time plays that you go, here are the most important 10 or 15 plays in the game. But then you can take it a level further and go, here are the top 3 or maybe even the most important play. The Carrington Valentine plays the most for me. That's just kind of how I've seen it. Steve in the chat, can I be honest? Of course, you can always be honest in here, bub. I don't care what seed we get as long as we make the playoffs. And in a world like, I think there's a typo there, I'd like to have the 7th seed. Winning the Super Bowl is much sweeter winning from the 7th seed. I love your mindset, Steve. I do. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I wouldn't want to be the 1 seed. Extra games at Lambeau are awesome, especially in the cold weather. You guys know how I feel about that. But it's just get in, man. Just get into the damn playoffs. That's the goal every year. And I think that's the frustrating part that I have. And I've got to get better at this. I got to get better about not ranting on it too, but I got to get better at just tuning out the fans that want to be negative. I just got to ignore it. We always say fan how you want to fan. I gotta do that myself. I got to fan how I want to fan, and we can choose to ignore those people that are just never happy. Every year, you don't go into this year each season going, all right, guys, if we're not the number 1 seed, it was a bad year. That's not. No, the goal is to win a Super Bowl. We were the number 1 seed how many years in a row there, right? Winning 13 games and hosting playoff games and this and that. Or we were at least the division winner where we hosted one playoff game. We might not have been the number 1 seed, and we didn't win a Super Bowl. If those same people that complain about that stuff, you'd have to ask them, which would you rather have? You be the number 1 seed or a higher seed and host a playoff game and not win a Super Bowl, or be the 7th seed and win the whole thing? Now, there's no correlation there, right? It's not to say that as the 7th seed, you got a better chance to win a Super Bowl. That's silly. I'm simply saying I want the Super Bowl, man. If that means that we're a lower seed, so be it. But the goal is just to get in. That's it. It's to get in and be playing your best football as you enter the playoffs. Those are the 2 most important things as a fan base, in my opinion. So, all right, let's see what else we got in the chat. Is there anything else we need to hit on? I think we're good. I think J. Cole was kind of talking about with the playoff scenario, we would have needed to beat the Lions in the second game. I'm pretty sure that was kind of the deciding factor for the Packers not being able to win the North. That and the Vikings continuing to win, right? There is a situation where the Vikings could win the North, and if the Vikings had dropped one more game, then it could have been us that hopped into the North, right? And there's going to be tiebreakers involved as well. But, yeah. All right. I think that's it, guys. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and get out of here. There's no reason to try to stretch it into 2 episodes. Seeing it's just me, you guys are going to get tired of hearing my voice, that's for sure. So we'll be back tonight, 7 p.m. Central Time is the plan. And what we'll do is give you guys an update of the standings, all the action that happened today. Again, some of the games you want to keep an eye on today as we get ready for kickoff. We get closer to kickoff anyway. We're about 3 hours away from the first kickoff here. You're going to be looking for that Jets and Rams game at 1 o'clock. We'll be rooting for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, kind of cool blast from the past. We want the Jets to somehow, some way upset the Rams, who are playing pretty damn good football right now. That's going to be, like I said, in Jersey at 1 o'clock kickoff. You got the Washington and Philly game is going to be at Washington, 1 o'clock. We're pulling for Philly in that one. At least I am. I feel like Philly we want Washington and these other teams that are fighting for the 6 and 7 seed to get beat up a little bit more. Philly's in. We know that. So I'm going to be pulling for the Eagles in that one. Bears-Lions, real simple. We want the Bears to somehow beat the Lions. We'll see if this could start a downfall for the Lions, or are they going to continue to find a way to win with that banged-up roster. And then, of course, in the 1 o'clock window, the Giants at the Falcons. We want the Giants to somehow beat the Falcons. We also want the Panthers to beat the Cardinals. And then, of course, you got the Minnesota game at 4 o'clock going into Seattle. We're going to be pulling for the Seahawks in that one, I believe. What's cool about that game, though, is no matter who wins, it still helps the Packers. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of a cool thing. I don't care. You want the Vikings to lose, obviously, but also with the Seahawks sitting at 8-6, there's a chance they could sneak back up and take one of those playoff spots. So you'd like to see. I think I would rather face the Seahawks than the Rams, me personally, in the playoffs. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. It's hard to beat the same team twice. It's really hard to beat them 3 times. But the scenario there, or that saying, goes for both of those teams, right? We already beat the Rams and we beat the Seahawks. Which of those two teams would you rather face? We want them to win the West, right? To give us a chance of possibly playing them as opposed to them being a wild card round, having to play a division leading opponent. So I think I would rather face the Seahawks again than the Rams. That's just me personally. So pulling for the Seahawks there in the 4:00 kickoff against the Vikings for sure. And then, of course, the next one that will come into play will be Sunday Night Football. That'll be Tampa Bay traveling to Dallas. We want Dallas to beat Tampa. They're sitting at 8-6, so we'd love for them to get knocked down a notch there as well. If the Giants can somehow beat the Falcons, doubt it'll happen. Michael Penix is starting. He'll probably be playing better football than Kirk Cousins, at least the way that Kirk Cousins has played this year. What a disaster that is with that contract. Holy cow. We'll talk about that in the offseason for sure. Yeah, we're definitely pulling for Dallas there against Tampa on Sunday Night Football. Oh, isn't it funny? We're rooting for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams on the New York Jets, and then we're rooting for Mike McCarthy in Dallas. It's going to be an interesting night, right? It's going to be a lot of nostalgia anyway. And, of course, Monday Night Football at Lambeau. Right now they're calling for something like a 30 or 40% chance of snow showers during kickoff, and then it's going to kind of taper off as the game goes along. But it's going to be really, really cold. So we'll get ready for that one as we get closer to Monday Night Football. That's it, guys. We're out. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We'll see you tonight for PTA Live. If you guys would hit that like button on the way out, sub to the channel. Feel free to share it with your friends. Let's see if we can get that sub number up and the likes up and get the algae boosted here. But you guys and gals are awesome. Thank you for spending time with us on this Sunday morning. Everybody have a great day. Talk to you soon.
And we go. We're out. Bye, guys.